like I keep saying, there are so many real high-powered media outlets that cover less news than I do, that it makes me wonder how hard the fucking job could be. And I'm ready to say it now. The more that I hear these quote-unquote Trump-Russia stories going on, the more I feel like playing a game of Russian roulette. And yesterday I actually was visiting somebody who'd gone through, he'd lost one of his, I believe he lost his father, who happens to be a Russian living here in the U.S. And his parents lived in like a assisted living facility. I was walking through the one of the garden areas, and I started to realize all the TVs that were on, which were at max volume because we're talking about assisted living facility, they were in Russian. So I'm wondering, like, how does this appear to people that are actually from Russia? This must look just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they're butchering these people's names if they try to pronounce it at all. These are stories that they're basically plucked from whole cloth, and you see them just go after President Trump and his family with the opposite attitude that they had towards the Clintons and the Obamas and even the Bushes. Even with the Bushes, I have to say that I never saw the mainstream media really, really look at the corporate connections of the family. And the same with the Clintons. And I'm going to get into that, to some extent, just because it just won't go away. These people won't shut the fuck up. Today, the Senate extended. Do you understand how critical this is? They extended their work period through the August recess by 2 more weeks in order to deal with repealing and replacing Obamacare. So instead of focusing on that, they have to focus on some bullshit meeting between Trump and or Trump's kid, Trump Jr., and some random person who claimed to have incriminating information on Hillary Clinton. So let's get into this whole topic on his show today with Sean Hannity. So here they set the table by introducing the players in this bizarre episode.
Let's talk about who is Rob Goldstone. Rob Goldstone is a talent manager for Emin Argalov, who's a Azerbaijani Russian singer, performed at Miss Universe and later performed at the WGC Championship golf course tournament that we held at Doral. All right, so do you know, I met him through the golf course. I wasn't even at the Miss Universe pageant, but I met him throughout there, so I had a casual relationship with him. Okay, so he sends you this email. We'll put it back up on the screen and give you a chance to look at this. This is the one that says the Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father, meaning Emin's father, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with documents, information that could incriminate Hillary Clinton, etc. Obviously highly sensitive information, but as part of Russia and its government's support of Mr. Trump. And then they asked the best way to handle this. This email comes in. What are you thinking? Honestly, my takeaway when all of this was going on is that someone has information on our opponent. You know, things are going a million miles an hour. You know what it's like to be on a campaign. We just won Indiana, but we're talking about a contested convention. Things are going a million miles an hour again. And, hey, wait a minute. I've heard about all these things, but maybe this is something. I should hear them out. Okay. When you read the parts about the Russian government or Russia supporting your father, did that put off any sirens in your head? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think this was, again, just basic information that was going to be possibly there. I didn't know these guys well enough to...
So, I think that was kind of a strange answer, but we still haven't seen any actual communication on the part of the Russian government towards him. So what they're going to try to spin this as is that he had intent to cooperate with the Russian government, but that's not the way that's not the way cooperation works. Cooperation would mean, for example, that the Trumps also would filter back information to the Russians, which there has been no indication that that's happened. Second of all, there has to actually be a piece of information fed to them. So you'll kind of get the sense here that we don't even know if he got anything at all. And I haven't heard anything about Trump Jr. receiving anything from the Russian person of any nature.
I understand that if this talent manager from Miss Universe, had this kind of thing. So I wanted to hear him out and play it out and see what happens. But, people are trying to reach out to you all the time with this.
All right, so you spent a lot of time talking about it, and you actually said at one point that, hey, if it turns out to say what you say it is, of course, what did you think it might be?
Listen, I've been reading about scandals that people were probably underreporting for a long time. So maybe it was something that had to do with one of those things. I mean, this is her perhaps involvement with the Russian government. So, again, I didn't know there was any credibility. I didn't know there was anything behind it. I can't vouch for the information. Someone sent me an email. I can't help what someone sends me. I read it. I responded accordingly. And if there was something interesting there, I think it's pretty common.
What about the timeline of this? This is pre, for example, WikiLeaks and the
honestly,
emails.
This is Russia fever. This is pre-Russia mania. This is 13 months ago before I think the rest of the...
So I think Trump Jr. makes a lot of sense here. And I'll be honest with you. I think sometimes Trump's two sons are much more intelligent than their dad, at least at presenting their views. I think Trump has a number of intelligent aspects about him, but they don't come through in regards to his speech. And his daughter sounds intelligent, but in reality, she talks a lot of nonsense. She just makes it sound good. I think that Trump Jr. makes a great point that at this point, nobody had any actual worry about Russia being a factor in the election. It was being said as late as October 2016, which was 3 or 4 months later, by President Obama, that it's preposterous, ridiculous, that anybody could think that for any reason the U.S. electoral process could have been compromised by hackers or foreign power or anything like that. So this is basic bullshit what's been getting spun, that he's got this meeting that he used to tilt the election. There's no evidence that anything that came out of that meeting really was used to influence the election.
Talking about that, trying to build up this narrative about Russia. So I don't even think my sirens, went up, or the antennas went up at this time because of it, because it wasn't the issue that it's been made out to be over the last, 9 months, 10 months, since it really became a thing. So I think there is an element of context to that. At the time, it wasn't this big news story.
Well, what did you know about Emin's father? What did you know about them from Moscow? Was it just the pageant you met them at?
Yeah, the pageant, and they're successful real estate developers over there. So, that's the extent of, my knowledge with them. I've met Emin once or twice, and, maintained a casual relationship there. Talked about some potential deals, and that's about the extent of it. They really didn't go anywhere.
What do you know about this Russian lawyer? What did you at the time, if anything, know?
I actually didn't know anything about it. Again, an acquaintance, send me this email as a courtesy to him. I said, okay, let's meet. But I didn't know who I was meeting beforehand, never heard of the person, never got the information until they were in the room.
At any point were you told, either in a phone conversation or otherwise, what they might tell you, what Goldstone seemed to be implying you to receive?
As I recall, it was all basically this email coordination. Let's try to set up a meeting and see what happens, and that it was going to be interesting information. And, in the end, it wasn't about that at all.
Let's go into the meeting. All right, so you meet at Trump Tower.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting was described earlier today on the Today Show. Did she describe it accurately?
I think fairly accurately. I mean, I was a little taken back by her saying, talking about me pressing for the information. But as you can see from the emails, the pretext of the meeting was, hey, we have information. And there was, some small talks. I don't even remember what it was. It just was sort of nonsensical, inane and garbled, and then quickly went on to, a story about Russian adoption and how we could possibly help. And really, that's where we shut it down, which is, wait a second, what does this have to do with
Did you even know what the McGinty Act was?
I'd never even heard of it before, that day. I think it became pretty apparent to, Jared and Paul.
So essentially what happened here, and I'm going to say what Trump Jr. isn't really willing to say and what the media isn't willing to say. I believe that a person who had a casual acquaintance with the Trumps, with Donald Trump Jr., came up with an idea. He was going to blackmail Donald Trump by arranging a quid pro quo. He would bring somebody that would offer, hey, I have information about Hillary Clinton. And then he would introduce a quid pro quo, which in this case would be removing certain sanctions. And that would be the clincher. And they would get this on tape, and then they would blackmail the Trumps and sell that tape for money. Or, at least a record of the meeting for money. Or any email exchanges. They would draw them in. It was a scam. And that's the most charitable assessment that I can give. I would say like the least conspiracy theory heavy thing I can give is that it was some sort of scam to blackmail them by posing as people giving information to Hillary that then they would say that, what about those $3 million that you promised us? Otherwise, we'll tell the world that you try to lift sanctions on Russia. So essentially, this was discovered, or if it was not discovered, then by the U.S. intelligence agencies or some anti-Trump media outlet, then the other reason that it happened could have been that it was set up by the DNC. And I would have to say that if this was set up by the DNC, then they did a piss poor job of pulling it off, because apparently it went nowhere. There's absolutely nothing that's been drawn out of the situation. So it's all a big whole shit sandwich.
I think Jared left after a few minutes. Paul got in. Yeah, this is her account. I do remember that. We were all there. I was basically sitting there listening as a courtesy to my acquaintance who had set up the meeting. And, in his own words, you can hear what he said, and you played it earlier, about it. I mean, he apologized to me walking out of the meeting, basically for wasting my time.
Well, and he did say at the end of your statement today, you did point out, as Goldstone said today, the entire meeting was the most inane nonsense I've ever heard, and I'm actually, agitated by it.
Yeah, listen,
and he called and apologized to you?
No, there wasn't really follow-up, because there's nothing there to follow up. But as we were...
Okay, so that is the story of the Trump collusion that's being alleged. That's it. There's nothing else. It's over. What collusion? I mean, unless they can prove that there was any exchange of information beyond this, which I haven't seen yet. If they can produce it, then they should do it already. What are they waiting for? What did they wait for until now? So let's compare that with this story from 1996. So the headline of this is that China was Bill Clinton's Russia, and here is some video it's actually made in March by the Wall Street Journal about it.
Bill Clinton scandals of the 1990s. What are the lessons for Jeff Sessions? Business World columnist Holman Jenkins Jr. joins the show as he does every Friday. So, Holman, for viewers out there who were too young to remember, why are the Bill Clinton scandals of the 90s relevant to what we're seeing on TV today with Jeff Sessions?
Well, there was a particular scandal involving a deliberate attempt by the Chinese government to influence the 1996 presidential election, which became a big fundraising scandal for the Clinton administration. Remember, he was president at the time. And we know from the FBI knew from intercepts between the Beijing embassy and the U.S. embassy and the Beijing government back home that China wanted to influence the election by sticking some money in to support Democrats and Bill Clinton to help advance China's trade interests. There were several guilty pleas from Clinton fundraisers, including one who declared openly that some of the money he dumped into the DNC came from Chinese intelligence. So this was a much less ambiguous foreign meddling scandal than the fake scandal that's going on.
Well, there you go. So nobody talks about it. It was huge for a couple weeks in the 90s. The Clintons were taking money from the Chinese government, from people actually connected to Chinese intelligence, in cash for campaign activities. So excuse me if I don't give a fuck about this Trump Jr. nonsense. As far as I mean, Trump Jr. is, I don't really care either way. I think he does a good job at whatever he does, but I don't give a fuck about what he's doing. And this whole scandal is such a display of how how devoid of substance our media has become, because they're just chasing after the latest car to drive by. That's the way that they behave. So anyway, I am going to go. You enjoy yourselves tomorrow. We'll see how long this turd show can go on. Until then, please like this video and subscribe to Bold Like a Leopard. And leave your comments below. And have a great Wednesday.